Where do you see the biggest challenges to your job in research coming from within the next 5 years?
Oh boy. Well, I think research in general have two issues. One, I think, is a very old one, and the other one is maybe a little bit more recent. And the older one, I think, is to sell the research to management, make it useful, show that it's useful, and demonstrate its usefulness, provide the kind of information that's really needed. But on the other hand, not to oversell it either. And of course, that's a very, very fine balance. And sometimes, we're tempted to oversell it a little bit. And, as researchers, we often get very passionate about the data. But, there's shortcomings such as people don't always know exactly what they want, don't always tell you the truth. I think respondents are notoriously bad at telling you about the future, such as what kind of programs would you really like to see that you currently don't find on TV, right? Because then the typical answer is, more of my favorite program, which right now is the following. I think they're also very, very bad at predicting the adoption of certain technologies, because for a variety of reasons. So that's always been an issue. I think a new issue that's come up is that because of the quickening pace of technology and of changes in media, there's an increased demand for the kind of question that you just asked, which is what's going to happen? How is this going to develop? And of course, you were very charitable by asking about the next 3 years. What most business people, of course, are going to say is, what's going to happen in the next 5 years or the next 10 years? And if you look at them and say, well, this is really difficult for research, they will tell you, well, but I have to do it because I need to plan ahead. I need to tell my management what's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years, and we have to, be ready for the future. And so I think that has created, on the one hand, an opening for research to become more important than it ever was. On the other hand, it makes the shortcomings of the research also very, very clear in certain areas. And the third thing is that it does open the door also for the competitors of research, which in my thinking are the kind of people who either call them, are prophets, prognosticators, gurus, or who call themselves researchers, but basically, do some kind of convenient sampling or some loaded questions and basically generate the media versions of what I think in politics is called the poll. In other words, where you get people to say exactly what you want. So those are really, really important challenges, and they I think make research today, and it's an interesting paradox, more important and more vulnerable, I think, than in the past.
Well, this leads us into a discussion that many researchers have talked about, which is research quality. There have been several DVR studies that have just come out, some with conflicting conclusions. What is your opinion about the current state of research in terms of quality?
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's not just about DVRs. I think it's particularly about technology issues, about online usage, and I think what happens is a number of things. One is there's always a huge appetite for information, and especially there seems to be a little bit more appetite for sort of surprising results, for unusual kind of things, for things that are about early adopters and people who do unusual things, like who cut cords. And I think every person in this country who has cut its cord has already been interviewed and has been an article has been written about that person by now. So I think there's always this tendency to exaggerate. I think it's part of this culture, which has a fascination with technology and a fascination with change and a fascination with newness and doing things different. So those things get emphasized, and therefore research that provides that kind of information often gets a lot of publicity, and if the research doesn't quite live up to that, there's usually an editor who will find a headline that provides that kind of shock or that kind of novelty, and then when you read on, you'll find that maybe the body of the research isn't really as sensational. So, as you can see from these remarks, I do have a little problem with that. There are studies out there of varying quality, and sometimes it takes a while to sort of digest and find out, what the quality is, and misrepresentation. I think that everybody on the supplier side as well as the networks is under cost pressure, and that of course is a real problem. Especially, I do understand that a lot of suppliers do complain that most RFPs, are sort of written under the assumption that whoever it is going to go to the lowest bidder, which really puts them under huge pressure to reduce quality, and so I think research quality is a really serious issue, and let me be clear about this. I do believe that there is room for what we would often call, a quick and dirty, that you can use very inexpensive research methods and to get sort of preliminary rough information about something, and that can be very valuable. You don't always need to spend huge amounts of money to get super accurate data, but I think you have to be able to distinguish, and you have to use them in the right way. And I think you have to, when you talk to suppliers, you have to insist and you have to ask them about quality procedures and quality control, because if you don't, you really can end up with wrong data, and that will hurt your business much more than the extra couple of $1,000 that the research costs.